What's up, Precision Junkies? Kellen back here with another episode of Inside Out Precision. And as usual, want to thank you guys for another great week. We had a huge uptick in our Instagram and our followers on YouTube. So big thanks to you guys. If you haven't checked out the Instagram page, head on over to Instagram and go to inside_out_precision. We got a lot of cool stuff, like kind of behind the scenes at the shop here, references to some of the videos that I've put up on YouTube, and then just, you know, general archery gear stuff. Everybody in this sport seems to be, you know, interested in what others are shooting and what they're doing. So got a lot of cool stuff on there. So head over to Instagram, inside_out_precision, and check it out. Today's video is actually in response to a comment that I made in the last video on YouTube about how to get your sight truly centered using the vertical line. And in that video, I mentioned that this is assuming all of your axes on your sight are set. And I had a few people DM me on Instagram saying, you know, what do you mean by the axes on your sight? And it's something I've always just kind of taken for granted, but I guess it's, you know, it's probably not really common knowledge. So the axes on your sight, there's a first, second, and a third axis. And when they all are set correctly, basically what it's ensuring is that your sight is perfectly leveled to your bow when your bow has been leveled in a clamp, just like this. So for example, I've got this bow in my little clamp here, and when I put my shop level on it, it is perfectly level. So now I know that my bow is level, so when I mount my sight, we're gonna make sure that the bubbles on the sight are matching the bow. So the first axis is basically just how that sight sits square on your bow. Most fixed pin sights are going to have just a built-in first axis. You can't adjust it. They just machine it perfectly level. And if the riser on your bow, they're assuming that's going to be machined square. So when you put them together, everything remains square. On a little higher end sight, like this is a Carbon Achieve from TrueBall XL, you can actually adjust this rail. So I got my bow leveled up here. I would then put a third level on the rail of my sight here. So let me get this on there real quick. I would mount that onto my sight, and then if I put my sight on my bow, and my bow is level, but this bubble is off to one side, I know that this rail needs to be adjusted either right or left. And that's important because on a movable sight like this, if it's not perfectly vertical, as I run that sight up or down, it's gonna move slightly from right to left or left to right, causing right or left misses at distance. So that's what the first axis is. The second axis is how the front part here on the sight, where my sight attaches to the bow here, is how that is level this way. So basically the tilting of my bow one way or the other. And when so I've got my bow leveled, I've got this on my first axis or on my elevation bar here. So when I set that on there, and these are both level, if the bubble on my sight then is out, I would adjust the second axis until it matched my first axis. So now my first axis is adjusted to my level bow, my second axis is adjusted to my level first axis, and then the third step of the equation is the third axis. And this is one that's really, really important and I think often overlooked. And the third axis is how this sight sits square to my eye and the riser of the bow at full draw. And the reason that's important is because if this is, let's say, tilted down and in like this, on flat ground, it's no big deal. But as soon as I aim up or downhill, there's gonna be a high side to the level. And so I'm gonna false cant my bow to get that bubble in the middle, and I'm gonna miss right or left. So a lot of guys, you know, on flat ground, they're dialed all the way out to whatever, 80 yards, but then as soon as they go to like a 30-yard uphill shot, they miss out a couple inches right or left, and they can't figure out what's going on. And it's just because they're canting that bow, which pulls the pin out of the center, and then they have to move the bow back left or right to get the pin in the middle, causing a shift in the point of impact. So the third axis is really hard to set without a draw board. We use the Hooder shooter where we draw the bow back at full draw. You know, when we have the first and second axis all leveled there, we take this third party level, and we put that on the riser right next to, I'll show you here, right next to the shelf right there. And then when I get this bow drawn back into the draw board, I'm gonna tilt it and, you know, grab the bow, make sure that this level, which is the one we set, you know, when everything was perfectly leveled, I'm gonna put the bubble in the middle there, and then make sure that the bubble on my sight matches that when it's in that tilted position. Again, most higher end sights are going to have a third axis adjustment. You know, most lower end fixed pins won't have one. They just are asking you to trust that they've machined that sight square. But it's a really important thing for accuracy when you're shooting in hills. So for anybody who hunts out west, you know, rarely are you shooting anything on flat ground. So it's really important that you have that set, as well as obviously for target. You know, you don't want to be missing a couple inches right or left on an easy target. Even though the shots were good, the pin was in the middle. If that third axis isn't set, you're going to miss right or left. So I hope that clears up a little bit what the second and third axis are and why they're important. It's kind of hard to only talk about it without demonstrating it. But if you have any more questions, you know, feel free to DM me on Instagram, or, you know, send us a message in the comments here, and I'll do my best to kind of explain, you know, what's going on there. So thanks for watching, guys. Again, we really appreciate all the positive feedback that we've had the last few weeks. We've really seen a big uptick in our subscriber base, and again, it's lots of motivation to keep moving forward. So as usual, keep it in the middle, and until next time, remember, precision is a decision.